Your go-to sports talk from your own backyard. This is SS Tampa Bay.
How's everyone doing today? I'm Harrison Smadjevitz alongside Zach Seifter, and this is SS Tampa Bay Sports Show. And you know what? We're on video. You can see us. Isn't that pretty cool, Zach?
I mean, we've done video up to this point, but we just kind of cut it out, took the audio, made it a podcast. Now we're just including the video so that the entire world can see our ugly faces this time. But, you know, hey, it'll be cool. A little more interactive this way. What do you say, Harrison? What do you think, Harrison?
I agree. You know what? Also allows you for that extra professionalness. You know, I didn't shave. I didn't get a haircut. You know what? I'm wearing a nice shirt. I showered. I put pants on. I'm ready to go.
Wish I could say the same. Just the shirt, not the pants. Goes to show you my mental state during this quarantine. So, just pajamas, no pants.
I mean, listen, that's been our attire for most of quarantine. When you can't go outside, you're like, why should I put anything on except sweatpants or no pants?
Exactly. You know, I saw a man walk to his mailbox the other day in just his underwear, and I'm like, this is what it's come to. So, it is what it is. We're I don't even know how many weeks in. I've lost count. Quarantine day 372. I have no idea. I've lost count, but
I believe we're in week 9.
Is that long?
Yeah. And I want what's really funny. I heard in Atlanta, police have actually had to tell people, remember to put pants on when you go get the mail. And I'm like, people know to put pants on. They're just doing it because they don't give a crap.
They're doing it because they don't really have to, I guess. I mean, yeah, we're at the point where I feel like we've just kind of thrown our hands up in the air and we're like, well, this is life now. Who needs pants? But anyway, Harrison, we're not here to talk about people without pants on. We're here to talk about sports. That's the point of this podcast. So why don't you get your mind out of the gutter for a second and let's move on.
You're right. If you do want to hear about people with no pants, go to the YouTube channel, peoplewithnopants.com/thisisn'tit. Okay, I made that up, but let's get on with it. All right, so
what do we got today, Harrison?
Well, let's see. The big topic actually showed up right before we started doing this podcast. There have been some rumors involving the Rays acquiring a pretty big name in the American League. Take a guess.
Well, the Yankees already got Garrett Cole. I mean, I know the answer. I'm not going to sit there and just drag this on. It's Francisco Lindor, shortstop for the Cleveland Indians.
Yes, that is correct. Ding, ding,
maybe
ding, ding.
Maybe not so much for much longer for the Cleveland Indians.
Well, it has been shown the Indians are trying to get rid of Lindor. He has a very expensive contract. Lindor really doesn't want to play there much longer. And they see the Rays.
Cleveland, let's be honest. Who wants to play Cleveland?
You really want to play
Cleveland? The mistake by the lake? That Cleveland.
Yeah. The same one that the lake always lit on fire every few years because they dumped a bunch of oil in it.
Same one LeBron left twice.
LOL.
Poor Cleveland. Anyway, not the point. So Francisco Lindor, very expensive contract, looking for a way out. And the Rays could be that way out?
It could be. It very well could be. I mean, the big thing is his contract and who the Rays might have to give up to get him. It's just hard to say. He has a $17 million contract going into 2020. It's not going to be that because there's not going to be 162 games and they're...
Obviously. The issue becomes the Rays cap. Even a chopped Francisco Lindor contract, there's going to be a chopped Rays salary cap going into the season. And, you know, when you have half a season, that's just the reality of it. I'm not sure I see any way that the Rays can fit Lindor's contract into the current cap. They're already tight on money as it is. They always are. One of the lowest payrolls in Major League Baseball. And to sit there and take on someone who, you know, it might be significantly less, but for right now, a $17 million contract, you know, it's hard to think of. And also the amount of, you know, what the Rays would have to give up in order to acquire his services might not make sense, but it's still something exciting to think about.
It's really exciting. It's definitely one of those win now situations. You want to really level the playing field with the Yankees because they just got Garrett Cole. Getting that big bat and big glove in the lineup would do a lot for the Rays. But it could come at a huge cost. I mean, one, paying that salary. His contract is higher than any other on the Rays. He'd immediately be the highest paid player on the team.
It's not even close.
Well, you have Charlie Morton at about $15 million, so it's kind of close. It's about $2 million off.
Yeah. It's after Charlie Morton, it's not even close.
Well, yeah. Besides that,
The next is what, Kiermaier, like $8 million, something like that?
Kiermaier's probably around $8 million. Snell's at around, I think it will be
7 this year.
eventually at $10 million because I know it's a 5-year.
Yeah, but this year it's in at like 7, at least in base salary.
Yeah, base. And then there's incentives on top of it.
Essentially. But either way, hefty price, a lot of options in terms of, what the Cleveland Indians could ask for, whether that be prospects, draft picks, money. Most likely prospects, because that's just what the Rays are loaded up with. And one of those prospects could be Wander Franco, the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, a shortstop who's, mind you, a few years away from probably cracking an MLB roster, but right now probably the Rays, biggest asset.
That's the thing, though. There's no way the Rays give up Wander Franco. Any prospect in their system might be up for grabs to get Francisco Lindor, because, hey, if you win a World Series, it's automatically worth it. It doesn't matter if the guy becomes a Hall of Famer. But
Exactly.
The number 1 prospect, he is so highly valued. He was what Brent Honeywell was trying to be about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't see any trade scenario where Cleveland is able to take Wander Franco from the Rays.
And the thing is, that might be what gets the Rays Lindor. Everyone wants Wander Franco. He would
Obviously.
be Lindor's replacement if he went to the Indians.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. It would be fair. It would be fair if you are going to get a player like Francisco Lindor, if you're going to give up a player like Francisco Lindor to get a prospect like Wander Franco back automatically for the Indians. Plus, they could get some other things from the Rays because, Franco is still a few years away. But to get Franco from the Rays would be a giant win for the Indians. Whereas for the Rays, it screams win now. Screams. Because you might be able to pay a lesser contract this year with coronavirus and whatnot. How in the world are you going to pay him going forward? The Rays, at least for the foreseeable future, have no way to increase payroll. They're stuck at the top through 2027. Fans aren't coming out there. They're not exactly top of the league in merchandise sales. I don't see any scenario really where the Rays are automatically going to become, go from bottom of the league to at least middle tier in terms of payroll. I don't necessarily see how going forward you can take on that contract.
The only hope that the Rays have really is that TV money truly starts to kick in. Last year was probably one of the lowest years for it. The average is about 82 million, but if I remember correctly, it was only about 50 for the first year. And then, sometimes it's as high as 90. So depending on the year of the TV contract, you might have a lot more money for payroll. And that's if the Rays are willing to spend it, because in theory, half of that money should be going to player salaries.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if Charlie Morton, because this is the last year of his deal, like you mentioned, $15 million, will Lindor be that much more expensive? Could you throw a few $1 million here to make sure he's locked down? Could you afford it that way? And then replace Morton with a younger pitcher like Brendan McKay, who's coming up and who might be ready in a year or two. It's tough to say. It's a tough situation. If I'm the Rays, oof, you bet.
It puts you in a huge pickle because you want that big player,
Yeah.
but you might be wrecking a lot of your future to get him. And again, it could be like the Cubs with Gleyber Torres. You win the World Series, you don't care because it worked out. Now, if you give him up and you fall short, it'll be looked at as one of the dumbest decisions in your franchise's history, especially, like, let's say if they do trade Wander Franco. It's not happening, but let's say they do.
Yeah.
You trade him away, he becomes a Hall of Famer, 3,000 hits, 8 million home runs. He becomes the first player to do that. And you have suddenly one of the worst reputations ever. You go from being, I need my prospects, to, hey, look at this team that gave up this guy. What losers.
Yeah, at that point, we look like the Pirates who traded away Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows for Chris Archer. Not necessarily the same thing. The Rays are trading for, a multiple-time All-Star shortstop who obviously is no Chris Archer. He's significantly better at his position than Chris Archer will ever be.
I think we can agree that no matter what you do, you're not going to make that.
You're not going to be the Pittsburgh Pirates, all right? You're not going to be the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's just hard to figure out. It's tough. Francisco Lindor is incredibly enticing. He's incredibly enticing. But you have to figure out what his future is with the team. Is it worth it to give up the number one prospect not only on your team but in all of baseball? Is it worth it?
Going into this podcast or show, because we have video.
Yeah, we're used to podcasts at this point. But show,
yeah. I can't, just from a personal standpoint, say it's worth it. There's got to be other prospects in the system that you can deal to make this worth it. If we still had Matthew Liberatore and we hadn't shipped him off to St. Louis for Jose Martinez, I'd be a lot more comfortable trying to make this deal. But if I'm Eric Neander in the front office and I've already made what might already be seen as kind of a dumb trade, I don't know if I can deal another top prospect for a guy. It would be a lot more worth it. But again, we gave away our top pitching prospect for already something less than Lindor. It would have been great to have had him right now.
It would have been, it would have provided the team with a little more of a cushion, I guess you could say, in terms of what they could give up without necessarily handing over Franco. Because if you can find a way to take Lindor from the Indians without giving up Franco, at that point you can play for a World Series now with him for the next year or two. And then all of a sudden, your top shortstop prospect is ready to go. But also, this begs the question, what did the Rays do with Willy Adames? A promising young shortstop who last year made strides.
I don't think the issue is what happens with Adames. I honestly think he's going to stay in the lineup for a while. I think it comes down to just where in the infield he plays. He's not going to be a first baseman or anything like that. Ji-Man Choi has that locked up until he goes to another team.
Course, Daniel Robertson, he's played some second base, he's played some third. I think and you also now have Brandon Lowe in there at second base. Maybe you slide Willy Adames over to third. Tell Robertson, hey, take some bench.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Honestly, I don't know how much longer Daniel Robinson's going to be on the Rays. He's running out of spots. You still have Joey Wendell on the team. Yeah. I think it's going to be this. Brandon Lowe is a lock at second base. He's going to be there for the next 8 years because that's how long his contract is.
Unbelievable rookie year. Love him to death. It's too bad he got hurt.
Imagine if he cut down that strikeout rate. His batting average would be like 340.
Yeah, exactly. Unbelievable.
So I think it's going to end up being who gets to be shortstop, who gets to be third base. Adames has established himself to the point where he's not going anywhere. The year before that, he might have been at risk a little bit. This year, he's basically established himself as a full-time player for the Rays. Whether he plays shortstop or third base, maybe because Franco is new, they say, hey, how about you take the third base job and see if you can be the next Evan Longoria? I have nothing wrong with that.
Whatever when you're young, as long as he's better than Matt Duffy, I'm fine with it.
Oh my God, Matt Duffy. Anybody is better than Matt Duffy. Anyone is better than the guy who gets a back spasm getting out of his car is better than Matt Duffy. I'm sorry. I'm glad the Rays finally moved on from that. We already no one won the Matt Moore trade on either side. But
back spasm get it? That didn't actually happen. You're kidding, right?
I've heard some rumors, but I'm not gonna say if I really can't confirm it. I just heard some rumors about that. He did have a lot of back spasms. That one year he missed the entire season for it.
The guy who got his back spasms getting out of his car. Yeah, that reminds me of like when Tevin Coleman got a concussion from slipping in a shower.
Did he really? Hey,
oh my God.
What's wrong with these people?
That's so funny.
Well, then again, Madison Bumgarner got hurt being like, I'm going to go on my dirt bike. Boom. shoulder injury.
Oh my God. No. God,
Anyway, let's get back on
Tevin Coleman now. Oh my God. Yeah, that legitimately happened. I don't remember what season it is. It might have been 2016 or 2017. It's when he was still in Atlanta. I remember just sitting there. I think it was during training camp in the preseason. It said Tevin Coleman diagnosed with a concussion after slipping in the shower and falling and hitting his head. And I'm just like, what?
Get a bath mat. That's all I can say.
At this point, yeah, I mean, gotta do something. Take precaution. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. We've wrung out this whole indoor talk probably more than the Tampa Bay Times could at this point. They can really drag out an article, let me tell you. But, all right, the next topic has to do with an already established player on the Rays, Blake Snell. He made headlines finally, but not for why you think he would. Let's just say he had a lot to say about the MLB's return plan on his Twitch.
Love you, Blake. But wow. First of all, for those who don't know what happened, essentially with Blake Snell, with the MLB proposal to return to play proposal the owners approved this week, it would essentially involve revenue share between the owners and the players. And let's just say Blake Snell is not for it.
Well, listen, we heard his opinion when the Rays traded Tommy Pham. I might leave that in the link in the description below because I don't want to personally quote him because it's a little explicit. But let's just say he doesn't want to do it if it means he's cutting his salary.
I
listened in a very blunt way.
I listened to what he had to say. And, this might piss some people off, especially those that want baseball to return. But I kind of understand where he's coming from. Listen, I want baseball to return as much as the next person. I do. I love the MLB. I love baseball. I would love to see a return. I'm praying to God that 4th of July, we are watching opening day. That is the hope. That is the dream. But for Blake Snell, I kind of understand what he's saying. All right. As it is, the players are already having their contracts chopped in half this year. As it is. All right. So Blake Snell's $7 million base salary becomes $3.5 million. Okay, $3.5 million. You play half the games for half the money. Big whoop. Makes sense. You know what I mean? That's what he's going to make for 82 games anyway. All of a sudden, you're being asked to play those 82 games, and they're asking you to split your contract in half again. Now you're making 25% of your contract. That $7 million is now all of a sudden less than $2 million. Then all of a sudden, another 10% of your contract's taken out in taxes. So all of a sudden, when you thought you were making $7 million, it's actually closer to about $1 million. You're making 1/7 of what you thought. And this is all for half a season in which you are risking injury and you are also risking being exposed to the coronavirus, which, say what you will, they are young players. For the most part, they would be deemed, not exactly high threat or major threats to, get anything for anything serious to come to the coronavirus. But medically, it has been shown that there are long-term health effects to this. There's talk that it could hurt male reproduction. There's and female reproduction. It can hurt that. It can hurt all sorts of things. It can give you health issues down the road. You are risking that. You are risking that if you get sick or if you are tested positive, you all of a sudden have to quarantine for weeks and be separated from your teammates, your family, your friends. You're all of a sudden a risk. Probably get stuck in a hotel room for 2 weeks and you have no access to anyone besides with your cell phone. And all that's play for 15% of what you were supposed to make. It's a lot of risk for not as much reward as you might say you like. And people, they might hear Blake Snell say, I'm getting mines, it's my money, that's what I signed for, I'm getting mines or else I'm not playing. But when you break it down, I mean, I understand we're not all millionaires. I understand not all of us have $7 million on the line or anything like that, or we could play 82 games for even $1 million, which is significantly more than a lot of people are making. Unemployment rates are up. A lot of people are struggling, with unemployment benefits, stimulus checks, this and that. So a lot of people are struggling, but it's hard.
I agree, and I will say I also get Blake Snell's side, but at the same time, someone's got to play devil's advocate on this show, so
We'll let you play.
I'll do it. And you got to think from the other perspectives. We've reached the point where no matter what, every team is going to lose a lot of money when they play. In-game attendance can be a huge percentage of teams' revenue. I'm talking as much as 40%. So if you're already going to lose a bunch of money and you furlough all these workers and staff, it's showing you can't pay all these salaries. If you can't pay a $50,000 salary, how are you supposed to pay a $7 million salary? And the only argument there is if you're cutting staff to try to pay players, and at that point, that's a PR nightmare in its own, by the way.
Yeah, but there's no baseball without the players.
I agree. And you know what? Maybe some players decide they don't play this season. That's totally fine. But they need to get baseball out on the field. And you know what? I gotta say, they're putting themselves at risk, but there are a lot of people right now stocking shelves at Publix who are really on the front lines who are at risk. Doctors and nurses who, even with a mask and good protection, are really at risk of getting coronavirus. And when you're a player, even if you're getting yourself out in the open, you're still a lot more cozy compared to other people. And there's a lot of people who would take 15% of their salary right now just to pay a couple of bills.
I agree. And this isn't, to sit there and knock, the healthcare workers and those who are stocking the shelves of grocery stores, all that. Obviously they have all of our respect, our admiration. It's just when you think about it from the perspective of who out there would necessarily say, I mean, these aren't normal circumstances by any means, but under, many circumstances, I would say there's a lot of people that wouldn't, work, do half their work for only 15% of the pay. Now, I understand these are trying times, and a lot of people would take any money, any money really, they'd take any work. Obviously, it's very difficult times. But for these players, it might, in their minds, be better for them to sit there and say, all right, well, maybe not risk the injury, the health this season, just keep my body right, get ready for next season, and we'll see what comes then, which is certainly a possibility of what's going on through their heads. I'm not necessarily sure they're wrong.
And listen, regardless of the stances we're taking in this show, there's one thing we can both agree on is that no matter what happens, Major League Baseball needs a season this year.
Oh, absolutely.
They cannot afford to just say, you know what? If Mike Trout and Blake Snell aren't playing, we're just not going to operate, because if they don't play at all, they're really going to fall behind the NFL, NBA, maybe even the NHL. It just does not look good, especially when you have a collective bargaining agreement expiring a year from now.
Yeah.
Not play a season. It's a PR nightmare for the fans. Everyone's just going to say it's going to be like 1994 all over again. We all know what happened. Baseball, you can argue they have never recovered from the players' strike of 94.
Yeah. I mean, that's when Michael Jordan decided to hang up the cleats and go back to basketball. So, and I learned that from The Last Dance. Great documentary. Really helped getting through quarantine. But besides the point, yeah, I mean, you could definitely make that argument, but the owners obviously want baseball back, the fans obviously want baseball back, the players obviously want baseball back. It's just a matter of what price. I guess at this point you could say what price, what cost, what is the number that will get this done, and is it something that both sides are willing to agree on? I think ultimately we probably will have a baseball season. If you want my personal opinion, I think that both sides realize they need baseball. We need baseball. If this league is going to go on, I'm not sure that there is I'm not sure that they're going to recover fully if this season is not played. And I think both sides realize that, or at least parts of both sides realize that. So I think you will get a negotiation figured out.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, my opinion the entire time has been, and it's probably a lot of the people's opinions too. This was never meant to be the be all end all plan. They knew the players were going to reject something. They're trying to start here and work their way down to that middle point. We knew negotiations were going to happen.
Start high with the intention of getting something a little lower.
And there's always a possibility that honestly the players say, let's play more games for more money. It could happen too.
That's true.
Because players
Could affect next season.
I don't know if you knew this, for the regular season, they make $0 for the playoffs and the spring training unless, they get that playoff revenue sharing for the winning team versus the losing team.
Right.
So you never know. Maybe it might lead to 100 games being played instead of 82. It could lead to, instead of it being the 50-50 revenue share, maybe they end up negotiating you only get 40% of your salary. It's a lot better than 15%, I'll tell you that.
That is for sure.
We can conclude one thing. There needs to be a baseball season this year. No season is a lose-lose for both sides. There's no one who wins if there's no baseball season. Actually, want to know who wins? Every other sport in America. Heck, even soccer wins if there is no baseball this year.
I mean, it kicks baseball to the curb. Like you said, I think, the owners obviously approved of a plan to reopen the season and get it going with opening day starting in early July. But, I think it's a very open plan, very fluid, where a lot of change can be made. And I think there's no doubt about that, if I'm being perfectly honest. There's no doubt about that. Everyone understands that. There's negotiations that are going on. This thing can be changed plenty. But like you said, it's a lose-lose for everyone. If nothing can be done by a certain point in time, it's a lose-lose for everyone. There has to be baseball this season, no doubt.
Yeah. And honestly, this is my prediction for all three leagues. And I'm leaving out the NFL because their season hasn't started yet. I'm talking about the three leagues who are currently suspending play. For the MLB, NHL, and NBA, I say they have 2 weeks left to figure it out. If they can't get it done by June because they need to get to practicing by the middle of June, they're all done.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit before the show. We had our little pre-show discussion about the NBA, where Adam Silver essentially said we're going to have a decision made next 2 to 4 weeks. NHL, Gary Bettman, the commissioner, said we're going to have an NHL season. I haven't even contemplated thinking about there being no season. I think they're pretty set on moving forward. It's just a matter of getting the right plan in place. And I think within the next 2 weeks, like you said, I think June 1st, like you said, is the deadline to get this all figured out and get this wrapped up and finished and get these players back on the court, back on the ice, back on the field. It has to happen because at a certain point, you're putting all of next season at risk for every league. And you got to get it done. This has to happen now.
Consideration, everything. It's not like you can just say, okay, cool, we made an agreement. Game 1 is Thursday and this is on Tuesday. There's still 2 weeks of practice. If you look further in the baseball's plan, there's a 3-phase spring training for coming back. If they're still doing pitchers and catchers report, then position players, then some exhibition games until they actually start the season. I mean, that one's a little more complicated because they have to start their season. But for the NHL, especially if you're having some of the hub cities in different countries, you're going to have to worry about quarantine rules. You might have to cross the border to Canada and sit on your butt for 14 days before you can even practice, which means you push it back even further. They need to get it done now. And I know the NHL is very confident. I have not seen a league more confident in getting back than the NHL. They are saying no matter what, we are coming back. The NBA is probably the least confident. They're saying, we might come back, we might not.
You'll see in 2 to 4 weeks, Yeah.
We'll decide. Baseball's somewhere in the middle. They're like, we're figuring this out. Hopefully we play.
Yeah. The NHL, like you said, they do show a lot of confidence. Like I said, Gary Bettman, the commissioner, saying, I haven't even thought about canceling the season. It's never even crossed my mind. So I don't like the hub city idea. I really don't, especially if it's going to be in Canada. Vancouver has stepped up as a possibility of a hub city, which to me doesn't make sense. If you cross the border for more than half of your team's 2-week quarantine, it doesn't make sense. I think you're far better off doing it in the United States.
There is one argument for it, And it's kind of me looking into the numbers for the coronavirus. Western Canada is doing really well. They're actually seeing a lot of the active cases have dropped. Now, if you go to Eastern Canada, it's a mess.
Montreal's in bad shape.
But BC's doing well. Manitoba, well, that's more Central Canada. But you know what I mean.
Quebec that got hit.
Alberta.
Quebec has definitely gotten hit the hardest. I think I saw yesterday Montreal is like the seventh leading city in cases.
Montreal's considered the epicenter of the whole thing, which is
Montreal's,
crazy.
which we can dig into this in a few minutes with how that plays into the Rays Montreal plan. Still, Vancouver. Does it still require a 2-week quarantine? You can say the numbers down. Does it require a quarantine? How are you going to get everyone up there? How many arenas are there? How do you split up the playtime? There's a lot that needs to be figured out with hub cities. If they can make this work where every team stays in their home city, then great. If not, then then it is what it is at that point. Figure it out. But the NHL does seem the most confident. I actually have a lot of confidence in the NHL getting back. Not necessarily before anyone else, but definitely getting back to play, or having confidence that they will get back to play more so than any of the other leagues.
Yeah, and you know what? Hopefully the 3 leagues do come back. I don't want to see anyone see their sport not come back. I've joked that I'd sacrifice the NBA to get baseball and hockey back, but I wouldn't actually want to see that. There's a lot of people who like basketball. The NBA is a massive, dominant force in the sports world.
Internationally.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't want even lacrosse fans to lose their league.
Everyone needs something, man. Everyone needs something.
Baseball fans and lacrosse fans are, we go at it, and I'm still hoping they come back. That means something. That's a huge thing.
It means something, kind of frenemies there, a little something. But, obviously everyone needs something, man. Especially during this time, it'd be great for everyone to get their sports back. I know for myself, my top 2 reigning sports are football and hockey. I love it. I love baseball. Love basketball and all that stuff, but for me, it's football and hockey. So for me, if the NHL can come back, that'd be amazing. Obviously, we're hoping for NFL and college football to go full force, ready to go come September. We'll see. But obviously, no one wants to lose their sport. If you're a fan of any sport, you want to see your sport back. Whether it's lacrosse, whether it's softball, whether it's tennis, or whether it's Quidditch. So everyone needs something.
Yeah, and of course, me, my big sport's baseball. Honestly, I'd probably rate baseball, hockey, football. And that just shows how much I like all 3 of those sports, by the way, because I go all out on the Bucks, and you know that.
Oh my God, we go all out on every Tampa Bay team in this podcast. Outside of the Rowdies, we don't really cover soccer. Sorry, guys. Sorry, soccer fans.
Maybe we'll bring on a guest speaker who can tell us a little more about soccer if we get to that point. I know some people who wanted to come on the podcast, so maybe we can bring on a guest eventually.
If any of you are Tampa Bay Rowdy fans out there, we could really use some soccer insight. We're not there. Sorry.
No,
Wish I could say anything different.
I'd like to. We know the Rays own the Rowdies.
Hey. It's something. We know that much.
It's something.
I know the ball goes in the net. That's one point. I know what offsides is. I know what causes a corner kick. I played FIFA, so I know a little bit.
Yeah, I played soccer and PE a couple of times. Does that count?
Did you break the rules?
I'm not even sure if I knew the rules.
And then, did you score?
I watched my friend score.
There you go. That's all you need. Perfect. Amazing. Soccer genius. We know what we're doing.
We got this. But you know what? We're not talking about soccer. We're talking baseball. And you already mentioned it a little bit earlier, the Rays, Montreal. It's been going on for almost a year now. Can you believe that?
Dual City. Everyone hates Stuart Sternberg, myself included. Not a fan. Sorry, Stewie. Dual City was always a dumb idea to me. Why are you going to split the season in half between 2 cities? It never made sense. But with Montreal being hit harder than any other city in Canada, seventh largest amount in terms of a city of coronavirus cases in the world. Montreal's big epicenter is the epicenter of the virus in Canada, and it's provided some complications with the stadium sharing plan with the Rays.
And this is more of just speculation. One of the former writers of the Tampa Tribune wrote about this, and we thought we'd address
Joe
it.
Henderson.
That was him. Yes, thank you. Great writer, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the big things, and it's really much of a general topic because it affects the Tampa Bay area too. It's not the coronavirus itself. A year from now, we might never hear from it again.
We might not.
The aftermath of the pandemic with high unemployment, the priority in which the cities and counties and states spend their money on things could really put a hole in a plan for an owner to have 2 stadiums in 2 countries. Because when you're trying to rebuild, focus on unemployment, you gotta say, is it worth building a stadium for a guy who doesn't want to play here for 81 home games? If it's a full season, you might be able to sell it, especially if it creates construction jobs and all that. But like, you're not going to convince, you can barely convince anyone in the Tampa Bay area to have it now, especially after the pandemic. You'll want to be very careful with allocating your resources. It will basically say 81 home games or we're not building it. And while Stu might say, well, then I'm going to Montreal permanently, Montreal might not even have the ability to build a stadium. They might get stuck in Olympic Stadium again.
Yeah, I mean, it's both cities when you think about it. In terms of unemployment, where's the money going to go in each city? Montreal, with the number of cases they have, how are they going to recover from the virus economically, mentally? There's a lot of aspects that go into this, and you got to set your priorities. For the city of Tampa, you're in a state where, quite frankly, unemployment is a mess. Not only in the numbers of people that have gone unemployed, but in terms of people that have struggled to get unemployment benefits from the state, which is a whole different story. I'm not even going to go into that. But obviously, a new stadium could create jobs, construction jobs, which would be a great thing. But it's all about priorities and where these cities are going to place their money, and do taxpayers really want to put money into a new stadium?
And that's another thing too, mentioning just money in general. You hear about this a lot more in hockey because there's Canadian teams, and Major League Baseball is really going to start seeing this issue when it comes to Montreal, is the value of the Canadian dollar. It's since the coronavirus, it's dropped down to 71 cents to the US dollar, down from like 76 cents before. And I know you're thinking, oh, it's only 5 cents. But take that 5 cents and translate it to billions of dollars. Suddenly something that was originally an $800 million stadium could suddenly be $950 million, and then it's suddenly deemed unaffordable. That's a huge issue in the NHL with Canadian players, with the salary cap being established in American dollars. If the salary cap for Canadian dollars fluctuates, and you sometimes are in a huge bind.
Yeah. And, contracts are more or less valuable depending on which way it goes. And it's the value of the Canadian dollar, it's taxation. There's a lot of financial issues, and I'm not necessarily so sure whether it's on the Tampa side or it's on the Montreal side that either city is in any position to ask its taxpayers to help fund a new stadium. And I don't think anyone would want to. I know that there was a lot of backlash in 1998 when there wasn't a pandemic or a recession, when Tampa taxpayers had a huge problem, Hillsborough County taxpayers had a huge problem with a lot of their money going towards Raymond James Stadium for the Bucks. Imagine coming into a recession off a pandemic, being asked for your money to go into a brand new baseball stadium. Believe it or not, in my opinion, the Rays are stuck at the trot for probably a little while longer.
You might even be able to make the argument they're stuck there beyond 2027 at this point. And is there still a chance the Rays are at the trop at 2027? I would say it's low, but it definitely increased the possibility now that this happened. And I know this is 7 years from now. The economy is going to recover by then, but it's on the way to that. You have to start building a stadium 4 years out these days, and that's already 2023. You have to get everything situated in 3 years.
I mean, in terms of stadium construction, 2027 seems like a long time from now, but it's right around the corner. It really is. You want to have a plan in place at least 5 years out, at least. in terms of financing, operation, what
Gotta
the
raise the
construction,
money.
what it's going to look like, where the location, where's it going to go. You have to have this plan, and that's only 2 years from now. Is it really possible at this point in time for a city 2 years from now, with the recession and coming off pandemic, we don't even know if this thing's going to be over in 2022, to have a full stadium plan in place 2 years from now?
It's going to be really hard to tell, because you also have the question of, can fans even go to games at that point? And you know what, by 2022 I think they will, but then you also have to consider capacity. You build a 35,000 person stadium, because for most of time after that you'll be able to sell 35,000 tickets, but for the first few years it might be you can only sell 10,000, and it might not even be worth it to get it off the ground until you can fund it for full-time use, full capacity use. It's so much has happened in the last few months that it could lead to the Rays just ending up, I don't even know where. It might not even be Tampa Bay or Montreal. It could be Portland. Well, Portland's $1 billion stadium is probably now on hold in the back burner.
Yeah. It's just so much in the air, so much up in the air. If I had to put my money on it, I think the Rays are definitely at the top through 2027. I'm not sure, first of all, that the city of St. Petersburg is going to let them out of that lease, especially with plans to go to Montreal. They might hold it over Stuart Sternberg's head and say, hey, you're not going anywhere for 7 years, and maybe even longer now. I don't necessarily see Portland as a possibility, or them not playing in Tampa or Montreal. I think, if anything, this keeps them stuck in Tampa for a while longer, because there is a stadium here, there is an established fan base. I mean, there's familiarity here in Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg. So I think ultimately that'll win out when, in terms of if they're having trouble with the location of the stadium. But it complicates a lot. And from what I've heard in terms of rumors, the Ybor City plan, the Rays are listening again.
Yeah, you know, I saw them the Tampa Bay Times as well. There's the land developer for the 30-acre area has two plans. One that is just, you know, regular residential malls. He's also factoring in a new stadium, which means the Rays still want it. And the sources have also said that they've spoken to them very recently, and that means within the 2020 calendar year. Yeah.
So the Rays have not necessarily ruled out Ybor City as a possibility, which to some people is, you know, very encouraging. Myself, I would say that's pretty encouraging. From everything we've heard, since they scrapped the original Ybor plan when they didn't have a financial plan in place, is Ybor's dead. Not going to happen. Rays have given up on Ybor. They won't talk about it. Stuart Sternberg won't talk about it. And now all of a sudden we're hearing, okay, well, the Rays are talking about it a little bit. They're interested in Ybor again. It's a possibility. And to me, at first, it seems like a very logical location, Ybor City, especially if you had the room. And it's promising that this team is once again looking in Tampa Bay, specifically Ybor City.
Now, I still hold the opinion that unless it's 81 home games, they're not getting a stadium, especially that beautiful one that they advertised for a few months. And
I would tend to agree.
But on that note, you know what? I think we've wrapped up the baseball talk for now. Let's get a quick football chat in, because you know what? Everyone loves their football.
I, myself included. You know, it's mid-May. There's not a lot to talk about. Teams are still, calendar-wise, about 2 months outside of training camp, but we do have a little bit of news. A little bit. It's not big. It's not, you know, Rob Gronkowski trade big or anything, or Tom Brady signing with the Bucs big, but it's something, and that's that the NFL is allowing in the upcoming week for teams to begin to open up their facilities again to employees. Now, this right now does not include coaching staff or players outside of players that were in the middle of rehab when the coronavirus happened, and team doctors would be allowed to bring those players back in and continue their rehab. But according to Roger Goodell, that is in the very near future if all goes well with these facilities opening back up, which means at some point in time in the coming weeks or even within a month, Tom Brady might finally get a chance to practice with his receivers at One Buck Place before training camp, which is significant.
You know what? I agree. Tom Brady, I'm sure he'd figure it out. He'd probably study the heck out of the playbook, but he needs at least to physically work a little bit with his receivers, figure it out, just because you can't have it be you go into game one unprepared against the New Orleans Saints and still only know a couple of plays, or you have no idea how Godwin and Evans work. You got to prepare yourself for that.
I agree. And obviously I think Tom Brady is so freaking smart. He was signed 2 months ago. I guarantee you he already has a pretty decent grasp of the playbook. I'm not going to say he knows it inside and out because I don't think he does. But I think he's definitely getting the hang of some things. He watches plenty of film. He's seen everything. He knows that the New England Patriots playbook and Bruce Arians playbook probably isn't all that different. Probably just terms, verbiage. And that's probably the only difference with a lot of plays. So I guarantee you Tom Brady probably already has an okay grasp of the playbook. At this point, the only thing I'm concerned about relatively when it comes to Tom Brady is timing with his receivers. Because you can only get chemistry between a quarterback and receiver on the field. Yes, you can develop it off the field. Him and Julian Edelman spent a lot of time together, him and Gronk, all his receivers. And when it comes to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, some of that chemistry will come off the field, but a lot of it's on the field with timing.
And you know what? Hopefully they figure it out, but there's one more thing we got to really touch up on before we go. This one doesn't really even involve anything specific with the Bucs. It actually has to do with the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis.
You are correct. Governor
he has
Ron
told
DeSantis.
NFL teams that they could play at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, home of the Florida Gators in Gainesville. And you know what? We gotta remind everyone, we are Gators, we rep Gators, we will shamelessly do that, which means it could be Saturday is Florida Gator football, followed up with NFL games on Sunday in the same stadium, and it's exciting stuff, man.
I recently graduated, so I'm technically now alumni. You're still a student for one more year, but do students and alumni get discounts to the NFL games at the Swamp if they happen? I gotta know. That is my number one question. Assuming that there's fans allowed in the stands, and it's not just the Swamp. I will say that I do have to point that out. We are homers. We love Florida. We will stay loyal to the orange and blue for as long as we live. But unfortunately, it's not just Florida. We're not special. Governor DeSantis did point out only UF. He said he spoke with only UF. But if this plan were to go into place, it would probably include Doak Campbell at FSU. It would probably include UCF or USF, Raymond James. It would probably include the Camping World Bowl in Orlando. There are plenty of football facilities in the state that could house professional football. That being said, let's stick to the Swamp. Let's stay close to home because we have to. Because it's in our DNA too. But with Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, it's extremely exciting. But I do have questions.
I agree, and it's really honestly my biggest question is, and it's not could they do it. Scott Strickland, the Florida athletic director, said they are ready for this. It's who would be playing here, honestly, because it's not going to be the Bucs or the Dolphins or the Jags. They have their own stadiums in the state of Florida. Honestly, I think it would be some of the northern teams like the Bills and the Jets. You bring yourselves closer to the Dolphins, only really worrying about New England. Who knows, maybe they just play in Orlando.
Yeah. I mean, the Giants, the Jets, obviously New York got hit by this pretty hard. Michigan, maybe Detroit, maybe Minnesota, also maybe some California teams because of the restrictions in place currently still from COVID-19.
Exactly, and it's not like they're trying to go somewhere where fans can go see it. That was a big talk before the big shutdowns. Now it's more, will they actually be allowed to go practice? Because in the state of New York and California, they might say it's not safe. But Florida might say, you know what? As long as you're not in like South Florida, you can practice in the Orlando, Gainesville, and Tampa areas. So all the teams flock there. And then you suddenly have its own like unofficial bubble of players in the Florida area.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. It's exciting. If the NFL came to Gainesville, I guarantee you there'd be a ton of people, including myself, who would be more than excited to, think of the possibility to go up to the Swamp for an NFL football game. I mean, has that ever even happened? I don't think so.
I can't think of it either.
It's incredibly exciting.
As someone who works for WRUF,
yeah,
you have the opportunity to cover an NFL game just walking down the street to the stadium. It's not like you have to drive all the way to Jacksonville like you normally would or down to Tampa. I'm very excited for these opportunities myself as a Florida Gator journalist if the opportunity comes.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, but there are concerns. First of all, you have to decide who's going to be there. Second of all, and this might be the most important one, is how does this affect the students health-wise? You are bringing in players and people from different states who are going to be sharing facilities, fields with college football players. Mind you, also students at the University of Florida. You have to minimize the risk of spreading anything from player to player, from player to student, student to student at that point. How do you keep your student body from being, potentially exposed from bringing these players in from different states and possibly exposing them to COVID?
You know what? They will have this all figured out long before they even get to the cities they play in. They're probably thinking about that right now just because, they have to bring players who go to these colleges back themselves. It's going to be a long, complicated process, and I think they'll be taking everything into consideration all the way up until just a few weeks before they do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's the dream for us. We love NFL football. It would be amazing to have it at the Swamp. It'd be incredible. We would love it. But this has to be done correctly. This has to be done safely. And also, how do you expect to upkeep the field? Games on Saturdays, game on Sundays, you are going to run that field into the ground. I hope they have a plan to keep that stadium in shape.
They're going to need a lot of grass seeds on hand all the time. And that's not even taking into consideration how many games a day they play on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Who says there's only one game on a Sunday? It could be there's two.
And like I said, there's plenty of facilities in Florida, plenty of stadiums. I think at most they would stick one team in Gainesville and call it. And they'd stick one team in Orlando, one team in Tallahassee. They'll do what they have to do. You also have football stadiums for FIU, FAU, things like that. You have plenty of football stadiums. That's not going to be an issue in the state of Florida. It's a shortage of football stadiums. I don't think that's going to be a problem. But at the same time, you're playing. If we have a college football season, you're going to have the Florida Gators playing their home games on Saturdays, only to go host games on Sundays. Now, granted, it's done here in Tampa. USF plays at Raymond James Stadium, also home of the Bucs, and sometimes there are back-to-back games, but it's not weekly. It's not every single week where you're having back-to-back Saturday to Sunday, and that would be the case many times here, or at least some of the time with Florida.
You know what? It's going to be very interesting to see how it all works out. I would love to see games in Gainesville, but you know what? We have a few months to figure this out. But unfortunately, Zach, the time has come to an end for this show, and this is where I kick you out.
All right, buddy. Hey, well, I'll see you next week. Always a pleasure. Episode 6 wrapped up. It's hard to believe that we've done this 6 times now.
And we've done now first time with a video.
First time with video. Hope everyone enjoyed seeing our ugly, pimply faces. Hopefully it wasn't, too much to run you off. It reminds me that one SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob eats the onion sundae and he's like, "Excuse me, sir. I hope my horrible ugliness isn't a distraction. You should enjoy the movie anyway." He's like, "Not at all, boy." Like that.
Or it's like you go up to the other one. "Do you think I'm ugly?" And the whole face just melts off. It's like
Exactly.
There's a little lost arc at the end of it.
That's the only thing I can think of with viewers finally seeing us is, "Do you think I'm ugly?" So
Or
one of those things.
people? Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Harrison Smadjevitz alongside Zach Seifter. We'll be back next week with an even better video than this one. Good day.